At around £750 in the UK, competition is fierce. How competitive is the top-of-the-range SMSL amplifier? Sometimes some of the information on manufacturers' websites can be misleading. Unfortunately, that tends to be the case when the marketing department get hold of things. Did you sense a but coming? There's a but coming. Hello everybody, welcome to A British Audiophile. SMSL has built its reputation on providing value for money, especially when it comes to DACs and headphone amplifiers. They offer the kind of measured performance that the hardline objectivists just drool over. But when it comes to acceptance from the wider audiophile community, well, that can take a little bit more time. It's nice to see that the Chinese-based company now offers a premium range of products labelled VMV that make no apology for the features that they include or the price that they charge. It's their top-of-the-range VMV A2 amplifier that I'm reviewing today. Textbook measured performance is a given, but this seems to offer quite a bit more for your money when you consider the build quality and the 100 watts per channel available into 8 ohms. At around £750 in the UK, competition is fierce and it's going up against the establishment, products like the Audiolab 6000A, the Rega Brio, the Arcam SA10 that I currently got in for evaluation, and it needs to be a step up in terms of performance from something like the IOTA VX SA3, which is my reference for an accessibly priced amplifier at £399. So when I requested this amplifier for a review, the question in my mind was, how competitive is the top-of-the-range SMSL amplifier? That's exactly what I found out, and I hope you hang around to see how I got on. The SMSL VMV A2 is not much bigger than your typical hardback novel. The substantial CNC machine aluminium case measures 280 by 43 by 255 millimeters. That's 11 by 1.7 by 10 inches, weighing in at 2.6 kilograms or 5.7 pounds. I suggest you do what I did with the supplied ridiculous spike feet and leave them in the bag. Thankfully, I had some nice silicone ones lying around that I could use instead. The clean front fascia has a display screen, a button to toggle between inputs, a quick access button for Bluetooth, a rotary knob for adjustment of volume, as well as other functions. The menu can be accessed by pressing the button in its center. There are plenty of options to customize the sound, whether selecting one of the preset EQ modes or altering the amount of bass or treble by a maximum of plus or minus 10 dB. You can also change the amplifier gain, which has a bearing not only on how sensitive the volume dial is, but also how dynamic it sounds. The ability to change the info on the front display, decide whether the screen is illuminated or turns off after a set interval, and adjust the brightness of the display are all appreciated by this reviewer at least. The VMV A2 comes with the same compact all-aluminium remote control as other devices in the SMSL Premium VMV range. On the rear you'll find one line-level RCA input, and you're well served with digital inputs on such a compact unit. There's a professional AES EBU, coaxial, which doubles up as a subwoofer output, optical Toslink, and USB, which supports PCM up to 32-bit 768 kHz and DSD 512. On the other side of the Bluetooth antenna, it's a nice touch to see the speaker binding posts offset in the manner that they are, to allow more space for heavy-duty connectors. Detailed information about the actual design of this amplifier is a little bit thin on the ground, but if I find out more information, I'll post it in the comment section below. Looking at the website, it's described as a digital amplifier with not a DAC chip in sight. What's going on here is that the incoming PCM signal, that's how most of your digital music is encoded, is converted to PWM, pulse width modulation. It's then fed directly to the Class D amplifier. It's purely a digital process. Power for each channel is provided by two ST microelectronics chips capable of producing 100 watts into 8 ohms and 200 watts into 4 ohms. ST Micro may not be a household name amongst audiophiles, but they're a multinational company producing electronics and semiconductors with head offices based in Geneva. So what about DSD, the handful of material that you might have hanging around in that format? There's nothing in the design or the literature that suggests that it's handled natively as DSD. The likelihood is that it's converted to PCM and then fed to the amplifier in that format. There is information what happens to the signal through the analog input though. It's converted to digital through a Texas Instruments PCM 1804 ADC and then fed through a filter comprising 3 OPA 1678 op amps. Sometimes some of the information on manufacturers' websites can be misleading. Unfortunately, that tends to be the case when the marketing department get hold of things. There is limited information available about the design, but on this particular occasion I'm fairly confident in asserting that I think that the SMSL VMV A2 is truly a digital amplifier. There's a few things that I need to mention before I start delving into sound quality. The first thing is that I normally do a separate section talking about setup and partnering equipment, but I'm going to integrate that into this section on this occasion. The reason is that in order to get good sound out of this amplifier, your use case scenario and the speakers that you partner with it are both vitally important. Another thing is that you have the opportunity through DSP and adjusting the bass and treble to alter the sound character of this amplifier to suit your setup, your taste and your recording, to some extent at least. And for once I didn't notice an appreciable drop in sound quality when using any of those settings, so I think you're going to have quite a bit of fun playing with those. That said though, one of the key strengths of this amplifier is its balanced tonal delivery, and I did prefer the setting with the DSP switched off and the tone control set to flat. So I may as well start with tonality. There's not that much to discuss. The A2 does a good job of getting out of the way and allowing the character of the speakers to come through. The bass is tight and fast, not the last word in weight and authority by any means. You can adjust it to some extent by turning the bass up, but you have to use that judiciously. I found that once you got above 2 dB gain, it started to sound boomy. There's a little bit of warmth in the lower mid-range, which is very nicely balanced with a little bit of sharpness in the upper mid-range without sounding bright and harsh. And vocals are produced naturally for an amplifier around this price. There's plenty of refinement on top as well, and extension, that sense of airiness. In fact, that is one of the key strengths of this particular amplifier. Okay, so it has good tone, but it has very good clarity without sounding overly analytical. Instrument separation is superb for an amplifier around this price, and it's very easy to track the location of instruments within the soundstage itself. The leading edges of notes are reasonably well defined, and they're delivered with a decent amount of body. It certainly isn't full and rich, but I wouldn't describe it as lean either. Instrument decay, or the natural decay of a note, is not the biggest strength of this amplifier, but nothing to criticize given its price. Did you sense a but coming? There's a but coming. The A2 has a limited sense of scale and dynamics, and it took a moment or two before I could put my finger on it. It certainly will play loud enough given the number of watts available, but it homogenizes over those natural swings in music, those ebbs and flows, and it isn't the first amplifier I'd choose if I wanted to get my toes tapping. In terms of comparisons, it will compete with the Audiolab 6000A all day long in terms of clarity and an even tonality, but it just doesn't have the authority of that amplifier. Now, I don't want to say too much about the Arcam SA10 because I'm still conducting listening tests, but it's a similar case there. Even the IOTA VX SA3 has greater punch, but can't match the A2 when it comes to clarity, refinement and even tonality. It's fair to say that this limited sense of scale and dynamics is the Achilles heel in the presentation of the A2 in an amplifier that performs very, very well in pretty much every other regard. But it may not be an issue for you. It depends on how you're using it and what you're using it with. I tried it with a whole bunch of speakers. My Proact Response 1 SEs, the Buchardt S400 Mk2s, the Amphion Argon 1s, as well as the JBL 4309s that have come in for a review. From about 2 meters and further away, that characteristic was all too present with all of those speakers, but not when I moved them closer. Now, none of these speakers I'd use as near-field monitors, but it did get me thinking how the A2 would work with near-field monitors. I was just fortunate enough to have some of those to hand. The superb Dali Menuet SEs, my own PSB Imagine Minis, and the Sound Artist LS35As. It sounded great with all three of those speakers in the near field. Limited scale and dynamics is no longer an issue if the transducers are only 1 meter or 1.5 meters away from your ears. In fact, it's exactly the kind of use case scenario where the A2 makes an awful lot of sense. The SMSL VMV A2 offers excellent build in a compact form factor with decent connectivity and functionality. Its limited sensor scale and dynamics restricts the A2's use to primarily a desktop scenario, and I do feel at around £750 it needs to offer greater flexibility. That said though, its transparent sound, solid build and compact form factor make it an excellent choice as a desktop solution. The SMSL VMV A2 gets a recommended from this channel. My question for today is, what's your ideal desktop setup? Perhaps you've already got it or you're working towards it, or perhaps that doesn't appeal to you for whatever reason. Share that in the comments section as well. All I'll ask you to do is to do it respectfully. All that remains for me to say is, if you like this video, if you like what I'm doing with this channel and you want to see it grow and you haven't done so already, please do all that social media stuff. Check me out on Patreon for consultancy services and bonus content. But for today, for now, a British audiophile, signing off.